yes.
But this is okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do this. We are about to go live. We are literally about to start the live stream.
No worries.
And we are live. Okay, sorry if anyone else just saw the last few minutes of this whilst we were testing the audio and the microphone. Hopefully it is working for you all now. Welcome to Shifty Perspective, episode number 2. I'd like to just first of all quickly thank everyone who tuned in last week and gave amazing feedback. It's really, really great. And hope to see you all commenting and asking questions this week. We'll try and answer as many as we can. But I'll start off now by introducing our guest today. He is a very, very interesting man. He is a virtual reality game designer, an artist, a scientist. He's got a lot of titles and things under his name. His name is Ben Outram. Hey Ben, how you doing?
Hey Ash, how's it going? Yeah, I'm doing very well.
Sweet. How whereabouts are you at the moment? Are you in the UK?
Yeah, I'm in the UK. I've run away from London and I've gone back to my parents' place. My parents aren't here, but my cat and some of my sister and brother-in-law and my girlfriend are here. So we've got quite a crew, bit of a group. It's quite nice. Yeah.
You guys allowed to like interact? You've got to keep some big distance, or I guess your family. So
yeah, we're sort of one household. So I think it's really important for me, for my mental health, to have like people around. I can't imagine all those people out there that are just, having to be on their own in their rooms or house. It's like, sounds like a nightmare. So I'm really happy to be around family. We don't always get on, but yeah.
It definitely beats being stuck in complete isolation, I think.
Yeah. What's your situation? You're with someone?
I'm with my girlfriend, and we're in our house in the Netherlands. So it's not as strict here, to be honest, as in the UK. We've got what do they call it? Intelligent lockdown, I think they call it. So there's social distancing. We can have friends over, but only 3 guests in the house at a time. You've got to keep 1.5 meters away from each other. People are going out and doing things. It's quite free.
I mean, we've been told not to even stroke cats in the neighborhood. Really? Yeah, because apparently people have been stroking cats, and then the next person comes along and strokes the cat, and then it's a secret silent killer, the cat, apparently. So my cat's right here, though. So right next to me. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, there we go. She's black, so not very photogenic, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would go get Odin in, my dog, but I wouldn't want to cause a bit of a ruckus on the podcast with the whole cats and dogs kicking off. But
yeah, well, she might walk all over the keyboard or something, but it's all right.
So I guess we should probably start off. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to say a bit about yourself, what you do? Obviously, I've announced that you are a VR designer. Could you entail what that is and what you work with?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, now I do a lot of work in computer vision to make money, but so that's my kind of real job. But I also do some VR production and VR games, VR experiences. My background's actually in physics originally, and then once I finished that, I sort of moved into media technology, that includes like virtual reality, augmented reality, eye tracking, motion tracking, and also things like funky computer-human interfaces using your brain waves and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's how I got into virtual reality. Yeah.
Is that controlling it with your brainwaves?
Well, yeah, certainly some people have tried to do that. Yeah, but I didn't actually do anything controlling your brainwaves. But we were interested in looking at how certain types of virtual reality experience can alter your brainwaves, or change what you're experiencing. If there's like an objective correlate in the brain, it shifts like the topic's shifting perspectives, right? So yeah, I mean, a virtual reality is quite a big shift in in, well, maybe not, well, it has the power to change your perspective, I reckon. So yeah.
How did you find, how did the results of that go? Did you notice natural change in, in people's brains, and have there been many studies with that?
Well, we weren't very professional about it, and we had some like EEG machine, but I'm a bit skeptical as to whether it actually works. So we didn't actually get any sort of definitive results on that. But yeah, no, I had the fortune to work at a media lab in Keio University in Tokyo, called Keio Media Design, and it's got a really famous guy there, actually, a guy called Mizuguchi, Tetsuya Mizuguchi. He was the director of and producer of a game called Res, and Child of Eden, and Luminous, and Space Channel 5, and like a load of, they're really trippy games that I've been a massive fan of all my life. And then I ended up going to Japan and going to this place, and then he was there. I was really pleased about that. And so I was quite inspired by a lot of the work he does. He's sort of into something called synesthesia and trying to replicate that in VR. So, so synesthesia is this thing that about 3% of, I think 3% of the population have. Maybe you have it, I don't know. There's a 1 in 20 chance or something. But essentially it's where you hear, like when you see something, you hear a sound, or when you hear sound, you see colors or lights, or you associate very strongly numbers or dates with colors. So it's kind of like this mixing of the senses. And for most of us, we don't really have this unless, I don't know, maybe if you've been taking some psychedelic drugs or something like that, and then you listen to music and close your eyes and it all becomes alive, doesn't it? But
that's like visualizing, literally the visualization of sound is an image.
Exactly.
People have that, not like normally. Is this an everyday occurrence?
Some people have it so normally that they don't even realize that other people don't have it. And then then they hear about it and they're like, oh yeah, I've got that. And then, so maybe some people listening will, but anyway, so the idea is that like this, I mean, it's also like, there's this sense of flow and rhythm getting into like the beat. And when you really into a beat, you don't just hear the sound, you hear it sort of like semantically going through you somehow as like as a multi-sensory experience. And that's the thing that this guy Tetsuya Mizuguchi likes to capture with his games. So you can see that in like Rares and stuff. And that pushed me to do a lot of stuff with sound visualization. So sound visualization on like the iPhone and on like the handheld devices, but then also in virtual reality. So most of all of my work in VR, almost all of it is to do with like creating sound visualization in VR, I guess.
So is this like wearing, is it an Oculus headset, and you would see, would you have music playing and you would see sounds?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm trying to do this, some waves around, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've prepared a video or two. Do you want me to share? Can I share a screen?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's see if I can. Will that go out to people? Let's have a look. So yeah, can you see now?
Yeah, I can see this, and I believe that everybody else should be able to see this. Let me just get my phone out and if I'm getting comments saying we can't see it.
So yeah, you might not be able to hear the sound, but I guess it doesn't matter too much. But I did one piece called Crystal Vibes in collaboration with Tetsuya Mizuguchi and some of the people at Keio University. They had been building this full body haptic vibration suit that had like 26 vibrators all over the body. So it had like up and down your legs and like on your arms, and they tried on your head, but it was really unnerving, having vibration on your head. But yeah, and then I was tasked with creating the VR content to go with the suit to like illustrate how you can use the vibration. And because we were a research lab, we were interested in some research questions like how can vibration be used? Can it be used to listen to music? Can it be used to represent like symbolic things, like, you know, like you get your vibration in your phone when you get a text message? That's like a symbolic representation, haptic representation of getting a message. So like that, can it be used like that, or can it be used as a sense of touch, like literal touch in the VR environment? So, and because I was interested in mixing that with sound visualization as well, I was interested in whether you could have the sound come at you, like visually overflow over you, and then but also feel it through the vibration touching you, or whatever. So that was that one.
That looks crazy. Can I just ask, when there's bits where the balls are being like batted away?
Yeah.
Is that something like? Is that the kind of thing you can interact with?
Yeah, so you can sort of reach out and hit the balls, and they'll sort of move around. Yeah, so there's quite a lot going in. I'm not going to go into the technical detail, but you can read about it, and it's published on Steam, so you can download it. I think it costs like 70p or something, 90 a euro or something like that. So you can have a go yourself. Obviously not with the haptic vibration suit. But yeah, and then I was also real fortunate enough to work with a sort of psychedelic dub producer called Ot. Some people know him as OTT. I think he's pronounced Ot. Who I just sort of like was this sort of small guy, and just emailed him and was like, oh, I'm doing this thing for Sundance Film Festival. Would you like to contribute music? And sorry, I don't have any money. And he was like, yeah. So that was really nice.
You got to actually show that at Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah.
Well, that's quite very tricky. That's for sure. Was that stuff was the Crystal Vibes one, that was with this your hero guy, right?
Yeah. Sort of. I mean, he was technically, yeah. I mean, he was responsible for the haptic vibration suit, and we also went with Res Infinite on the PlayStation 4, I think. Also to Sundance, so we were exhibiting both Crystal Vibes and Res. So Res is quite an interesting game. I think they won quite a few awards for best VR game when that came out. Yeah, I mean,
how long were you in Japan for?
I was there for 4 years in total.
That's last week on the podcast. Japan came up, I think, a couple of times in conversation about the crazy world of Japan, I guess, crazy country, and how they are. It's just another level of the integration with technology and stuff. How did you find it there?
Yeah, I mean, have you been to Japan?
Yes, yeah, I went 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love Japan. I think it's like a wonderful place. It's a great place to go on holiday. It's a great place to travel. It's a great place to live. The food's awesome. It's good value. And yeah, I mean, talking about changing perspectives, I think it's just such a different society to ours, and the way they talk and the way they think is just so different that it's really interesting to get a different perspective on your own culture. I guess you get that going to any other country and other culture, but
like especially most European countries, you can really, it's a different country, but there's a lot of connections, and it's really very easy to communicate even with different languages. But I think Japan in particular, my experience was just another world really. Like even going to African countries, I've been to Morocco, and you can still have I don't know, there's still essences of Europeanism. I'm not sure what the right term for that is, but Japan is just another world really.
Yeah, it's interesting because like they've come from a completely different cultural history, cultural background, lineage, and but at the same time they're like extremely technologically um, modern and advanced, even more advanced than the UK and the Europe, I would say. And they're very forward thinking in many ways, in some ways, when it comes to technology. They're not afraid to do really crazy ideas like doing human augmentation or um, like there was one team in K Media Design where I was working doing superhuman sports. So they're like interested in using technology and robotics and VR and stuff to create new or augment existing sports and make sort of extreme versions of them. So that's quite interesting. And then, yeah.
Like, would they? Is this like uh, like biohacking? Like, check. Is this with people as well? Like, augmenting humans, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've read stuff about that in Japan, but like one of the stuff they were doing in my lab, for example, was taking robotic arms and then giving you extra arms, a bit like, I don't know, that bad guy in Spider-Man or something, or like a robotic tail, which can help you to, well, ostensibly help you to balance and as a third arm or something. But uh, yeah, I mean, Ash, you're quite interested in sort of, I don't know, like transhumanism and stuff, aren't you? Very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I think the idea of I just read Homo Deus, actually.
Oh yeah, it's a great book.
A fantastic book. Yeah, the idea of where we are going to be in 100 years or 1,000 years is absolutely crazy. And I guess the integration of technology, um, especially like listening to someone like Elon Musk, who's been screaming against AI and warning us about that kind of thing, and saying what we need to do is we need to essentially become cyborgs to beat AI.
Are you lining up? You're the first one to get the cyborg implant, or maybe the second
Um,
one,
I like the idea of the monkey tail that you just said about. I mean,
monkey tail.
multiple arms. It sounds quite crazy. Like in the lab you're working on, are these things that they just? Is it like you wear it, or is this people could have this fused with them?
Well, at the moment, it's kind of like hacked together by students, and it's very like it kind of works, but they want to connect it to your brain, but at the moment, it just uses a joystick kind of thing. But the vision's there, the idea's there, so. I mean, personally, I think that if transhumanism brings us anything, Tails is probably not the top of my list, I think, in terms of like what I'm hoping. Um, I mean, I really love that book, Homo Deus, that you bring up. And I think that Yuval Harari thinks in a very interesting way. I mean, my favorite point about that last, I think it's the last sentence of the book where he says like, um, what we really should be asking because technology is going to be able to bring us anything we desire, anything we want. And the question is, um, and that includes like, brain implants to make us hyper intelligent, hyper powerful, hyper capable of emotions and whatever, But then the meaning of life really becomes an important question. Like, what do you want to want is his final point. Because, I mean, we can pontificate on the meaning of life, but we can't like now. But it's not like we can do much about it. We've got to get a day job, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. We might do a bit of art, we might succeed, we might not, but then we die. Whereas in the future, you can imagine beings that don't die, that have loads of intelligence, they can do so much more stuff. And so, the boundaries are much further away. So like we might say, oh, the meaning of life right now is to like, I don't know, love my children and my family and be happy. But like that's because those are pretty much the only options available to us really, whereas like in the future there's going to be a billion options of extreme power and consequence, and so suddenly the meaning of life actually is a bit more important.
Quite dangerous and pretty scary, really. I
do,
mean,
do you think it's scary?
Yeah, I think we've got to tread carefully. It's exciting, but it's also terrifying because, like you said, there's great power, and with so many options. Yeah, I mean, I just can't. I think that what we see as our meanings of life now, meanings of our lives now, will change to. I think they're not even going to be concepts. Like maybe a job isn't going to be a concept. As we change. Like right now, we have a
That
short.
doesn't sound scary. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, what, just floating around in the ether, with your tail and your super enhanced brain.
I feel like things like, I don't know, like, well, jobs will become pointless, and then like, yeah, even now during this lockdown and everything, I mean, some people are still working, some people aren't working, and I think very similar to historical times when there's been lockdowns, you see like these poems there was a poem going around that was written in like some previous plague that happened, and it was talking about how everyone had time to not work and then sort of get back in touch with themselves or with their family or with their boredom or with their spirituality or like with their creativity, and um, apart from work. And so I think this is helping us to realize that you don't need a job to be happy, and in its place can come stuff that really is more important for being human, like community and spirituality, whatever guise that might form, and creativity and sports, competitiveness, games like Settlers of Catan. I've been playing one called Viticulture in my family recently. It has you like you actually sort of you role play being a wine farmer, and it's really fun.
uh,
So all that sort of thing.
is this you're starting because of the situation that we're in now? People are starting to spend more time playing games and stuff like that. Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Is
mean,
it
when I
crazy?
look at someone like you, Ash, though, and like you get so much excitement from actually like your different businesses and everything you're doing, and like doing a podcast, and um so I guess if there was no work, you'd probably be pretty gutted, wouldn't you? Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a bit crazy. To be honest, I don't feel that it's a burden. I feel quite fulfilled with what I do. But I guess if there was no need for work, and if all of my, I assume if we're thinking like the Marxist needs are met, and I just have everything that I need, then I would use that and I would write more music, do more podcasts, um, and do lots of jujitsu and kickboxing, that kind of thing. So I think and surfing, and yeah, I'd be pretty happy. It's just right now this fits my narrative.
Yeah. But I also guess that as soon as we have AI taking over and doing all our jobs for us, it'll also be like, I don't know if you're a fan of Ray Kurzweil or whatever, but there'll be this big acceleration of returns, and then we won't even be human anymore, really. We'll be like, somehow our brains will be some conjoined consciousness that's hyper capable of extreme sort of imagination and all this kind of thing. So probably if we think about work when we're in that state in the future, if we get there, then you know it'll be so insignificant a thought as to be just some like dust. I don't know.
So is this like the kind of general consensus amongst the scientific VR community, like the other people that you work with? Is everybody accepting the fact, or I say the fact, or accepting that they believe we will essentially just become a big neural network, and yeah, things are going to change drastically, or are there people who are strongly against it in the field you work in?
um I can't really speak for every scientist or VR developer, but um, I think for me, I'm really excited about the future of technology, and I think most people in technology are. I'm not sure everyone believes in that the singularity is near kind of thing. Maybe it's a bit far off, but I guess whether it is or whether it's not, um, it still poses really interesting questions about what it means to be human, and also it's interesting to, as an inspiration to guide like your work and stuff, into the future, like doing VR. There's so many different reasons that people are coming up to do VR, and I think that, well, so far a lot of them have been not very good reasons. Um, but I think that as soon as you combine VR and that's kind of ideas about the future and where we're going and connectedness and shifting perspectives and alternate realities and new imaginations and infinite creativity and what AI can do for us and how we can interact with AI. VR is a really cool place to start doing some of those experiments and start playing around with some of those things. So doing multi-sensory VR experiences with sound visualization, or creating virtual avatars which use AI to talk to you, and like those things are going to become very possible over the next 5-10 years or whatever. So as an artist working in VR, it's very exciting to be working in that particular area, because all these technologies starting to converge, and you've got, imagine having a VR AI teacher that can just, teach like you spiritual truths or something, be your like personal guru or your personal therapist or whatever. Or like my sister's trying to teach her kids at the moment because she's locked at home, and that's an absolute nightmare. She's tearing her hair out because she's not a teacher. um, but imagine you could just actually, this, people might get scared of this, but you could just stick your kids in VR and have like a teacher that's perfect for them, that understands their level and teaches them maths and English and everything, just like in the most perfect attuned way. And you can just, you can go in, dip in and out and join them, or they can like all sorts of exciting stuff.
Does that, I mean, that eventually inevitably means we would not need human teachers. So do you think
Yeah,
this would
exactly.
result in, because we're already at the point, right, where lots of manufacturing jobs are going to machines, and I'm not sure if you follow Andrew Yang. Um,
No.
he's one of the presidential candidates in America, Democratic candidate.
Oh,
One
right.
extremely successful businessman and really, really interesting guy. And he is basically, his main platform that he is standing for is universal basic income. And he says that it is inevitable in the next 5 or 10 years that most manufacturing jobs, and soon to be driving jobs as well, like lorry truck drivers with automated vehicles, will no longer be needed. And in the States, that's like 40%, a huge percentage of the workforce. So he is saying that there needs to be a universal basic income of, everybody gets $1,000 a month. And that's everyone, whether you're a billionaire or whether you're, you would have been a lorry driver. And he's actually he's calculated it, he's had economists calculate it. It's not very difficult for them to fund. And in fact, the way that he's put it forward, they would actually have a lot extra money from where they're taking money from and putting money in and stuff. Can you see that VR and AI would speed this up, and eventually we would lose like most jobs?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I'm not very good at politics, or so I tend to stay away from politics. I mean, I love the idea of a universal basic income, and I hate the idea of politicians and humans who have their own like petty interests and stuff. So, if the sums add up, then that sounds great. Let's do it. I'm always a bit of a fan, and I don't know whether I'm joking or not really, but I think if there was an AI that stood for president and it was like provably like fair, not corrupt, and it was provably like non-corruptible, you couldn't hack into it, and it embodied all of the sort of like a shared values of humanity that we vote on, um, or something like that, and it was able to make all the decisions, with much better knowledge than us. I would vote for that, you know, or like I feel like it's almost already happening because the president of the United States, or whatever, if he goes like, if he tries to go anywhere, he's going to use his Google to do like the wayfinding. So he's already using AI to make decisions, and then the governments and think tanks use data science, which uses AI to like analyze data and come up with decisions. So it's not a huge step to go from that. Like, I mean, this is a big point that Yuval Harari's making in Homo Deus, but it's not a huge step to go from where humans are at the helm, being guided and consulting with AI, to just AI's at the helm, and then we'll probably be better off for it. I mean, anything's better than the current situation.
I think I agree, but I just see a comment just pop up which actually says, but you need personal interaction, surely. I'm just looking at that on the live comments. Do you think, is the human touch not needed because a computer, again, that would be cold and just calculated, and you don't always need practicality and that everything?
Well, I mean, yeah, certainly in a leader, it's nice to have them come and get pictured having a pint at the pub and having a personality behind it. But, I feel like that's only important because politics is so crap that we like to sort of at least be like, oh, well, at least he's a nice guy, Whereas if politics was great and AI just did all the work for us, then we'd get our humanity from elsewhere, from like our, sports group or like whatever. And with the teaching thing, yeah, it's quite scary to think that your children are being taught by like some AI. But I mean, um, the AI is going to be really efficient at teaching your kids. So maybe you could just put them in education for one day, and then that would be just as good as having them in a class of 25 students for 7 days. And then for the rest of the days, have them spending a lot more time with humans doing, I don't know, other things, so that are more like human and maybe emotional, or I don't know, yeah. And then the other thing is, who's to say that an AI isn't can't have value as a person as well? I mean, it is going to be, might be not human interaction, but it might be something even more special. I don't know. Who knows?
Real emotion.
I mean, I don't think I'm particularly qualified to talk about this stuff anyway. So take it or leave it. Yeah.
I've got another question actually. I'll just put to you from someone who says, with VR, is it or could it be used for people with sensory issues or disabilities from, say, brain injuries, etc.?
Yes, and it's being used for those things. Things like rehabilitation, um, people who have had brain or spinal injuries and or have lost the use of different things or forgotten how to do certain things. Um, yeah, I mean, one of the big problems in those areas is that you give people um, like tasks to do to train themselves up to get better, and then invariably people go, oh yeah, I'll do it every day, and then they don't do it. And so like with VR, it really helps because it's spatial, so you can create the task in VR and make it much more engaging and varied. People are more likely to do it, and then crucially you can also you actually have like feedback on, and it's connected to the internet, so the doctor can see whether the patient's been doing the exercises or not, and tick them off if they're not doing it properly. So yeah, lots of stuff like that. People are using it for hypnotherapy, for overcoming fears, for putting bullies in the giving bullies the perspective of the person that's being bullied, and giving them a different perspective on how it might feel, and that kind of thing, dealing with social issues, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Could you give an example of like what you mean by that? Like,
What's that? Sorry, Ash?
how is that? How does that work? How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I only just saw something on the BBC about it or something, but I think the idea is that bullies are often, the problem is if they empathized properly with the person they were bullying, then it might give them a different perspective, and like, if they know what it feels like. I don't know. That's a theory. I don't know if that actually works or not, but apparently it seems to work. Seems to be people using it for that purpose.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just I've got a fear of it, I guess. If I'm honest, the biggest thing for me that I'm scared of when it comes down to VR is having everybody become like addicted to. I mean, you see how people are with video games. I've got friends that I remember as a teenager, certain friends, once they got into like the Xbox came out, and we'd have these Xbox like LAN parties to begin with. We do split screen, and then we'd have LAN parties. But then when Xbox Live came out, a lot of them just stopped coming out. You wouldn't see them anymore because they were just playing that all the time. Everyone knows somebody that doesn't leave the house because they just stay and play video games all day. So I have the fear for me is that when you get such good VR, especially if there's like really interactive games with AI, and like you're in another world where you can be, you put on this headset and you are a warrior and you are and if you don't feel good about yourself not in real life and you put this on, why would you want to leave? And then I could see it becoming this kind of dystopian future where everyone's just plugged in like the Matrix, and they've got just like a drip and
Yeah, I can't wait. That's exactly the future I want. I like the brain in a vat would be great. I mean, it's often said you're already a brain in a vat. Your vat is your skull, and your virtual environment is just physical reality. And so the problem with that is that it's just, it's just there. It was just like the universe just kind of came into existence, and then it's just there. So um, so you don't really have a choice with it. Whereas with VR, it could be like engineered by some superior AI, which can engineer it in a way that's better for whatever purpose that you might want. And that's where this question of what do you want to want really comes in, because you gave the video game example, and most video games that are popular involve violence, shooting people, going around like killing everything, and that, I mean, it appeals to like the base instinct that's like not necessarily a good one. People don't really think about it, and the game studios just make these games to appeal to that base instinct because that's what people are likely to just buy without thinking whether it's good for them or not. And obviously with VR now we've got shooting and zombie games and everything as well. So, and with AI coming, obviously we could create the most terrifying VR experience in the world, and it would be like super scary, and it might get rated really highly. But is that really what we want? And I think those futures are scary. The idea that every game is a shooting game is scary, but the fact that there are other games which are more wonderful, more like, things like Mario, where you're like running around and you've got Yoshi and jumping around saving the princess. The fact that there's games like that, maybe we can live in a future Mario world or something, like
I think maybe I'm a cynic, but I think gratuitous violence sells more, and I'm not sure whether, like, I don't know. I don't know the statistics behind games, but I imagine things like Call of Duty and various violent shooting games are probably, in my eyes, I assume are the most popular.
yeah, they're so popular, aren't they? They're so popular.
And how would you change that? Because if you're designing these virtual worlds, and it's still, I I'm guessing at the moment it's going to be game design companies which are paying for it because they're going to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Surely they're going to go for whatever sells the most, and however they can, whether they can sell upgraded weapons in games. So do you not think the human behind it can steer it in a negative way, and that's most likely how it will end up?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and it's terrifying. I think it's not good that we go down this route. I mean, people have been saying that ever since the invention of books. You got like dark books, and then people are like, oh, don't have dark books, it'll give people dark thoughts. And then sure enough, they make dark books, and then okay, people have dark thoughts. But then I don't know, it's not, we don't go back and go, oh, I wish books were never invented. Um, it's the same with all media technology. I think that there's always a resistance to it. Probably there was resistance to like the telephone, the radio, and certainly TV and the internet. And I mean, the internet, brings out the worst in people, and you got all sorts of horrible stuff on the internet. But we we're glad the internet exists, right? And we wouldn't want to go back to when it didn't exist. Um, so I think the same goes for future media technologies and new media technologies such as virtual reality. Yeah, you're right. There's some pretty annoying things like shooting games and everything, but I think we will get to a stage where we'll get over the initial hump, and then we'll be glad those things will still exist, but we'll be glad that that it exists. And I think the other point is that you mentioned that the studios do whatever makes the most money and violence sells and stuff. That's true. But, if we live in a post-money, post-scarcity world where people aren't just out to like maximize money, then maybe they'll try and maximizing other things like, I don't know, goodness and beauty and wholesomeness and self-control and like peace and joy and those kinds of human characteristics and experiences, which are more characteristic of like deep spiritual experiences that people can have.
That would be that would be ideal. Do you feel that you're kind of alone on that when you speak to like other developers or is that the general sentiment? People wanting. Do you think like if you were to speak to 20 other VR developers, most of them believe in building wholesome experiences and
it depends what circle. I mean, the circles I'm in, I go to like indie game meetups and game jams and stuff. So you get people, a lot of them students, they're really interested in making one thing I love other people do that I don't really engage with so much, which is storytelling. I love storytelling, and I'm just really crap at it. But doing really like hot, like things that create a real strong emotional response from a story in a VR, in an interactive experience, or what have you. Those can be really beautiful. So that's one thing. And then I'm also like talk to people in the sort of transformative tech and consciousness hacking communities, and they're all about like creating positive experiences, like not looking at your phone every 5 seconds, doing meditation apps with VR, or hypnosis for therapy, or all these kinds of things. So those are the people I talk to. But then your average VR developer is probably someone who works for, I don't know, a games company. They don't really have much say over what they produce. Don't know.
Another comment that just came up was that this actually this kind of clashes in an interesting way with how the guest last week about the addiction to technology. And we are creating that addiction. Do you think it is unhealthy to be addicted to technology?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just picked up Russell Brand's book. What's it called? I've got it up there. Recovery,
Oh
freedom
yeah,
from your addictions. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite interesting. I mean, I'm far from like I'm not the person I wish I was in many ways. I think that we've all got these addictions, and especially addictions to phone, um, like destructive stuff in our lives. And yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Um, maybe life was simpler before the smartphone. Um, I don't really know the solution to that. Carl Smith, you were interviewing last time, weren't you, right? So he's thinks a lot about those problems and how we can resolve those problems. Yeah, they're big questions. Um, the question is how to do things in a way which is healthy and towards fulfilling your full potential as a creative, spiritual individual, rather than taking you in deeper into depravity, vice, addiction, and escapism, those kinds of things. How do we do it? I think a lot of it comes down to the individual, and yeah, maybe Russell Brand's book has got some. I've only just started it though, so we'll see. We'll see.
Maybe the follow up after you read that, and you were like, no, VR is the devil. I resigned from that.
I think, as with all things, technologies aren't inherently evil. It's just that humans tend to make mistakes, and we can make bigger mistakes when we've got, a bigger power to tweet to the entire world, or to watch extremely immersive hedonism or something. So we've just got to be more vigilant, um, and we need, yeah, I mean, how do we do that? I don't know. But we're moving in so many good directions, as well as our capabilities to go into bad directions with technology. I think society as a whole is going in the right direction. So even if you look like 100 years ago, there was no mobile phone, there was no telephone, there was no distraction. And maybe people like, didn't do so many bad things or whatever when it comes to the things we associate now with like things that cause us stress. But were they an advanced, enlightened civilization? Well, no. I mean, they had less ways to get their information. They'd read the newspaper, and so everyone just thought the same things. Now we've got like much more personal expression on the internet. So it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? All the time.
I think a big concern that a lot of people have is once you open up Pandora's box, once you let the cat out of the bag, you can't bring it back. With like you said, smartphones. Okay, we can't just ban smartphones now. Even if there's all these terrible things, they're out, they're released, and we're only going to release more technology, and it's only going to progress more. So I think a lot of people worry that we come up with these, monkey tails that we can wear, or we come up with these different modifications to and technological advances before really actually considering the implications of them, and we just release them first, and then deal with the fallout later.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's really like whatever's happening, it might not be good, but it's certainly interesting, isn't it? Like with technology. Um, I always like to say, usually it's not really true, but I think like I think it was a question on like OkCupid or something 10 years ago, which is a dating website where they get you to answer loads of questions. And one of them was like, what would you prefer? Interesting things happen, good things happen. Choose one, and I think I wrote interesting things, but obviously, like I'd like good things to happen. That's surely got to be the priority. But good things without being interesting is, I don't know if that's something I really want. Peace and joy without creative expression is not something I want. I think that the human potential is being enhanced right now, and that is also important, as well as being relaxed and happy and all that kind of stuff. If you look at like the history of the universe, and like then there's human evolution, and it's all accelerating, and then now we've got all this change happening in single lifetimes, and of course it's going to be like disruptive. It's gonna mess us up in some ways. It's gonna like change our mental ecosystem of aspects of ourselves which in the past have been in a beautiful equilibrium. Just like the world's ecosystems being unbalanced, so is the ecosystem of our mind. And I think that when all the dust settles, I hope I'm alive to see what comes out of it. Um, Out of the last great extinction event came humans. So, maybe the next the extinction event of the ecosystem of the mind, out of the ashes will come something extraordinary.
Kind way of thinking. Do you think that is going to be enough? Are we progressing enough that you can see these big changes happening within our lifetime?
I hope so. I don't know. I mean, AI is moving really quickly, but it's moving quickly in some ways, but it's not like there are some critical things which are still left unanswered. So it's really uncertain. I think I'd like it to happen, but I don't know. I'm not particularly concerned actually if it doesn't happen, because just I think the knowledge that it will happen at some point is enough for me. I think it's fantastic, and B, whatever that superhuman, transhuman AI integrated intelligence is, it sure as hell won't be concerned with the ego and individual identity as a human, and but at the same time I believe that that part of that is the true nature of your consciousness. So if you die, Ash, okay, your personality and your memories die, but what it is to be a being in this universe is something that isn't born and doesn't die. So I think you don't need to worry. That's my cat. Sorry.
So, what projects are you working on with VR at the moment, and what have you got in the pipeline? If you can tell, you're allowed to say. I'm not sure if it's secret, developing of the human consciousness machine.
Well, no, I mean, it's much simpler than that. I was actually thinking to show a video, or showcase a video on your podcast, but I think I'm going to keep it under wraps a bit. But I can describe a bit. So, one thing that with VR, for any budding VR enthusiasts out there, like one thing I get annoyed with is people create. I mean, we've covered shooting games and why they're bad for in another part of the conversation. But one of the things I don't like about them in VR is just I think it's a really bad use of VR, because the wonderful thing about VR is that you've got 6 degrees of freedom. You've got like movement in X, Y, and Z directions, and then you've got rotation, roll, pitch, and yaw, and you can manipulate that very finely with 2 hands in your head and do really clever puzzle things within this space that your arms can reach, right? And that's really exciting for me. That opens up all these possibilities. But when you do a shooting game, you reduce all those degrees of freedoms of interactivity into just X and Y. You're just shooting like something over there, and it's like Duck Hunt. That was invented a long time ago. We don't need to resort to those kind of game mechanics in VR. And the other thing we've learned from lots of VR research is that moving around in VR makes people feel really sick, and it's really unnerving and not very nice thing to do. Like if you accelerate or move someone in VR, they get like this sort of horrible sense of motion sickness and nausea that makes you want to just stop playing. And then so people get around this by like teleporting you places, but then it's really weird to like teleport your way around a place. It doesn't really feel like you're immersed in exploring a place. It just makes you feel like you've been having a PC game tacked into a VR experience. So um, so I try and get away from that. My philosophy is to use that space in front of you. And if you need anything, it's VR. You can bring it to the player, you can bring it to the user. You don't have to make the player go somewhere. That's a limitation of the real world that we try to get rid of by inventing cars and planes and things, because we don't like to have to go to places to get stuff that we want or interact with things we want. So in VR, you don't need to emulate that weird, horrible aspect of the real world. You can just bring everything to the user. And so yeah, I'm really interested in games like rhythm action games like Dance Dance Revolution and um, those kind and Beat Saber and like those kind of games. So my current game is like uses rhythm and space too. So you have to take sort of things through sort of puzzles and mazes in 3D space in time to with a rhythm. And there's a lot that can be done in that area. And then the visual style is kind of like I really like. Well, psychedelia in general is what I take a lot of inspiration from in my artwork. So it's a really like I like the idea of iridescence in VR. It's always been something I'm interested in doing in VR. But so I've been learning how to do that. So creating really weird like stuff with iridescent things. Um,
Have you got anything you could show of this kind of thing?
yeah, yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Well,
Can you see that? So this is just like, I don't know, messing around with some shaders to do iridescence. You create like you look at like you do the dot product of the normal with respect to the camera direction on the mesh, and then you
how would this be? So, like, you
so you
weren't.
be in VR. So you're in this is like a prototype design of a character in the VR experience that's going to talk to you. The storyline's like you're sort of at the beginning of the universe and you've got this iridescent goddess thing that talks to you and you're wants you to help her to invent the laws of physics for the universe to grow or whatever, and then you kind of are figuring out the topology of it by solving these puzzles. um, Sort of like there's a game called Katamari Damacy which is has this similar sort of psychedelic god that tells you to do stuff, and it's really interesting. So that's part of the inspiration.
Like the puzzles, what you do, like when you say solving the puzzles, and you said I'm moving things through. What do you mean by that? So you would be stood in a room, and so would you have to like grab something that's not there and pull it around and put a basketball in a hoop, for example?
Yeah, so well, it's like there's a game called Kura Kura Kurin um, on the Game Boy Advance where you have this long spinny thing, and you have to bring it through a maze. And because the thing's spinning at a certain speed, you have to time it right. And if you touch the edges, you die. But obviously, on the Game Boy, it's just in 2D, and you're using a D-pad, which is like really limited. But in VR, you can do like obviously in 6 degrees of freedom around you, and take this thing, spinny thing, through space. And so I create this sort of trippy maze that sort of changes shape as you go through it, and it's a bit like liquid, and it's all iridescent, and it's kind of interesting, and it creates like helixes if you take it in sort of the Z direction, you pull it, these two spinning things coming creates this sort of like DNA structure, and you have to guide it through this thing. So I'm really excited about it. It's just a personal project, but I've started hiring some people to do the music and create do the animation and the character design and the like I don't know the what do you call it, like typography for and marketing materials. So I'm going to try and pitch it to like um, Oculus or something to try and get it on the Oculus Quest. It's what I'm aiming for, but I don't know how far I'll get. We'll see.
It's like a long term. I've got no idea how long game development takes? Is this something that takes years and years, or?
Well, this is a sort of 6-month full-time project, I think, in terms of timing. So not too long, but yeah, it would be my first like proper VR game that's properly published. I've done quite a few other ones, like messing around with like juggling games, juggling in VR. So people can check those out on my website if you're interested in VR and juggling. Something we didn't get around to. What's that?
Your website, is it Benjamin?
Yeah, exactly. BenjaminOutram.com. So yeah, it's got information of all my projects on there, like VR and other projects as well. Done a lot of like liquid crystal photography. Did sort of music video for Max Cooper. That was really cool, with some video footage of liquid crystals and phase transitions of liquid crystals into other liquid crystals and into liquids and into solids and crystals and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, and then anything I update on my current project, it will be through my website and through my YouTube channel. You can have a look at that and keep.
You're on social media. I'm just getting the site up now. I see you've got all the social icons at the bottom, so people can follow you and check out your stuff. I see you've got fiction, and a blog as well. Cool. So
Yeah.
Quite active with all of this.
What's that?
You're quite active with with your blog posting.
Yeah, relatively. I mean, I'm not like I don't have a podcast like you or something like that, but I can dream. The blog's mainly just to announce things and put bits of code and stuff and solutions that I found for programming VR and different things that I think people might find helpful. And there's like, yeah, some short fiction stories I've written that sort of in the transhuman futurology type sci-fi genre, I guess. And then the project pages have links to videos and of various different projects. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look at there, so you can have a explore. And I'm always looking for new ideas and collaborators. So if anyone out there is interested in working with some of the code, or like working on something together, or like proposing a project, be very interested, especially if it's really trippy and exciting and not a shooting game.
I'll make sure I put up on the podcast page the link, and yeah, let me know that I can get in contact with you. I imagine there's going to be. I've seen some viewers already. There's definitely some people who I know are a little bit, into their trippy kind of things, and probably have some pretty creative, trippy ideas.
No idea is too trippy.
Oh, okay. Well, we've just been over an hour, by the way. So I'm not sure. I haven't checked the questions or anything. If anyone else listening, there is a delay. So by the time they hear this, it might be too late. But if there's anybody got any questions quickly now, feel free to ask them on comments, please. We just refresh the page, check. Please type quickly.
So Ash, what's your plan for this podcast then? Is this something you're gonna go? Yeah, you're just gonna keep going with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go weekly, every Wednesday for now. Yeah, the same time. As soon as lockdown is over, we're going to start having guests here into my office. Going to set up a studio, and when I'm into my new place, I'm moving soon.
That's awesome.
I'm going to have a nice little podcast studio set up so people can come and chill. Right now, I'm in my office. Can't really, it'd be nice to have someone sat here and on a whiskey, or someone wants to.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Yeah, or a spliff because you're in Amsterdam.
Exactly. Yeah. Got some pretty exciting guests. Like I'm already super happy with having you on and having Carl on. Next week, I'm very, very happy as well. We've got a guy who is an author and a psychologist who works with I guess CEOs and people to kind of coach them. So we're going to try and do something about positive thinking during the lockdown, that kind of thing. Got some musicians, comedians, more techie, sciencey people. Trying to just get people from all kind of spectrums. So if anyone's listening and you have something that you feel you can bring to the podcast, obviously feel free. You can email us. It's shiftyperspective@gmail.com. So yeah, that's where it's going, and hopefully we can start growing. And I hope you can come back on once the lockdown's over. Come out for a trip to the Netherlands.
I think I've just bathed up all my ideas now, so I don't know, I've got enough in me for a second one.
Well, maybe your game will be done, and we can actually play it on the Oculus.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, maybe if I can come over there with my Oculus, I can demo it for you.
That'd be amazing. Oh, I've just got another question just come in. It says, what is your vision for in VR marketing, commercials, etc., and how long before we see this?
Oh God. Yeah. Don't know. Well, Facebook owns Oculus, which is a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Presumably so that they can pump marketing materials into your virtual reality experiences. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite so bothered about marketing, actually, because as someone who has tried to market things myself with Facebook, it's really handy to be able to get to the audience that you think is going to have the most value from your products. And I'm always pleased if I actually do see an ad that I like and I click on and then I buy something, because it's probably because it's updating me on some game or technology that it knows that I like and I really want to know about it, and then I end up being reminded that my favorite artist has released an album or something like that, and I'm quite happy about that. So obviously that's a minority opinion. I think most people are quite upset about advertising. so yeah, but yeah, good point. VR is going to be adverts everywhere, I guess. Have to get like a VR ad blocker. Maybe we can start working on that together.
That is a good idea.
The ad blocker, VR ad blocker.
Yeah, get ready before the adverts come, and then as soon as they come, you roll it out. And you might have to advertise the ad blocker though.
Exactly, and I guess you could just advertise it to everyone, because those who've got an ad blocker won't see it, and you don't care if they don't see it. It's like the perfect crime. Woo! How do you advertise your podcast?
At the moment, I am just advertising it through our Instagram page and through Facebook. So hopefully anyone listening, please invite your friends to the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Shifty Perspective. You can just hit invite all to your friends and spam them with a little invite that if they ignore, you can do nothing about. So it won't actually affect anyone negatively, apart from me if you don't do it. So yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is with advertising is it's really useful. It's really important to get the message out there for things that and yeah, obviously it's married to money, which is a problem, but yeah.
Well, I'm gonna. I think it is now being just looking at we are still going strong at 1 hour and 10 minutes. And I've got another question just come in. Great, this is brilliant. Other platforms like Steam for your games? You mentioned Steam earlier.
What was the question? Sorry.
Do you use other platforms like Steam for your games?
Yeah. So Crystal Vibes is on Steam, so you can go and download that. I've also put some smaller things which are kind of just prototypes that are limited in their fun. You have to be sort of specifically interested in what they're doing to find them interesting, probably. But they're just released on like SideQuest, which is a free. It looks a bit like Steam or the Oculus Store or something like that, but it's for the Oculus Quest. And you can sideload stuff onto Oculus Quest for free. So that's really cool because loads of people have done cool experiments with like hand tracking. So I've got like a hand tracking sound visualizer where confetti comes out of your fingers and it's colored like the music. You can do that. And then the juggling one's on there. I think you can also there's one on just my website, one of the juggling games. So yeah, different platforms. I think if I make this game, it depends on what a publisher is interested in it, I guess, as to where it will be published. But ideally, everywhere, I'm aiming for the Oculus Quest, but equally on Steam as well.
Cool. I think that is all of the questions we have got through, which I'm pretty happy with that. Thank you so much, everybody who has been asking questions. I've just seen some messages saying that the audio has been unclear for me. I'm not sure what's going on. For some reason, my microphone here is switching between the good microphone and the shitty laptop microphone. So I'm really sorry if my microphone has been glitching out a bit. Let me just see. Yeah, we're going to upload this anyway afterwards to YouTube. So, and to all the other podcast platforms. Is there anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
No, not really. I think it's just really wonderful to be able to have a really nice conversation with you, Ash. And
yeah, man.
I feel like I'd love to do the podcast the other way at some point to give you a chance to speak, because you've done so many exciting things, from talking to you last time in Amsterdam. So you should be a guest on your own show at some point, I reckon. Can you do that? Can you be host and yeah. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It's great. And thanks to everyone listening.
Thank you very much. Cheers. I will, if you want to hang up from the Zoom, I will just finish up and end this. Everybody else.
All right. No worries. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I have been Shifty Perspective, and this was Benjamin Outram. He's a PhD and very, very interesting guy. So please check out his website. We will post all of the details of this in the description. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm about to upload this onto YouTube afterwards. And invite your friends to the page Shifty Perspective. We will be having weekly podcasts with all different guests. So if you have any guest suggestions, do not hesitate to email, whether it's musicians, authors, scientists, business people, anyone who you think might give an interesting perspective into an interesting topic. I'm all ears, and I hope to, have my perspective changed, and hope you guys enjoy this too. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Stay shifty.